Well, hi everyone, a very good afternoon to you and welcome to Homestead-Miami, Ferrari Challenge North America, where the first of the races is about to get underway this afternoon. Glorious weather conditions, it's very, very hot and humid, and you can see that this extraordinary Homestead-Miami circuit is the one that plays host to our Ferrari Challenge Trofeo, Pirelli and Copa Shell drivers for their two races across this weekend. And the first of those are about to make their way onto the track for race one for Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli. We had quite an exciting qualifying earlier on, which of course would set the grid for race one to come this afternoon, where the drama was brought about primarily because Cooper McNeil, who we expected certainly to be at the sharp end of the grid, when he went out and did a quali lap, unfortunately his transponder wasn't working, and therefore on a track that promotes so much tyre deg, they had to come in and put another transponder on the car and send him out to do it all over again. And in typical Cooper McNeil birthday celebrating style, today he went out with another transponder and actually did a better lap, Greg, which we never expected. Greg Kramer, good afternoon.
Oh, it's great to be here. Great to be working with you once again. And you're right, his penchant to be able to go out, put a warm-up lap in, and then a flyer on the very next lap served him beautifully with that transponder problem cropping up. He didn't need to take a couple more laps out of the tires to get to the back up to pace again. He was able to just go out, drill down that lap, and as you said, he had looked at the predictive on his first lap, and it showed it was a good one. And he said, oh, no, that's gone. We're not going to be able to duplicate it. We got this. But because that little bit of track knowledge and his ability to just go out and throw in a flyer in a hurry, he was able to better that predictive time by 0.2 and ended up just missing the track record by about 1/100 of a second. So it was just a remarkable effort by Cooper McNeil. That's the kind of championship effort you need, you know, when you're racing somebody like a Benjamin Hites and the rest of this field.
Yes, and talking of that championship, Benjamin Hites is, of course, chasing Cooper McNeil. It has to be said, Cooper McNeil has got a very healthy margin in the championship. However, there are still a big number of points up for grabs before the end of the season. And whilst still very much mathematically possible for Benjamin Hites to take that championship away from Cooper McNeil, he really rather needs the number 63 driver to fall over now because, you know, Cooper, and you see the mature side of Cooper's racing, he knows that, you know, he's not going to go absolutely and risk everything for the win if he can bank some very sensible points, which of course also prevents Benjamin Hites encroaching on that gap.
And you're right, Hites has been chasing just a little bit here this weekend. And, you know, one of the issues that you get concerned with, a track where you have very little grip and massive tire deg because of the heat, that's a track where things can happen and you can throw it off the track. And that's, you know, so Hites is hoping that happens to Cooper, but Cooper has been just mega smooth. And he's the guy who's been throwing down the really superb laps here thus far. So it's going to be fun to see how this all unfolds. And of course, it is time for us to go racing at Homestead-Miami Speedway. And with that, we would ask everyone to please rise, remove your cover as we celebrate this great weekend with our national anthem.
And the anthem plays out here at Homestead Miami. And let's go straight down to trackside where Shay is awaiting us.
You guys have hit on it a little bit. The championship battle heating up, qualifying more important than ever, trying to get a point for pole position. And Benjamin Eathus realized that that's what he needed. Unfortunately, he lost his fast lap because he hit one of the cones going back up on the banking. And you can actually see the damage to the car, just the effect, the toll that it takes, this circuit, trying to get a fast lap. He didn't even get second place, though, because that honor went to Canadian Martin Burrows, who does have a win this year at a very similar circuit to Homestead. That would be WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Very abrasive course, very low grip. But again, Martin Burrows, second, not first. So who took pole position in qualifying earlier? Who took that valuable point? Well, that was none other than birthday boy Cooper McNeil, championship leader, who knows that winning the race today gets him one step closer to his second consecutive Ferrari Challenge championship. He did have to do an extra set of laps, though, because his transponder on the front of the car malfunctioned on the first lap. They went through in between qualifying and now, did the software update, did the subscription renewal, everything you need to do to try and get that transponder working once again. They are confident in it, but they had to borrow teammate Lisa Clark's transponder for qualifying. And Cooper went back out. He did his fast lap. He did everything he needed to. He looks calm, cool, and collected now. Cooper, good luck for the race today, bud.
Yep, birthday boy. He is excited, and he said, I hope I can give myself a present when I was chatting with him yesterday.
Looks good for 52 years of age,
I
doesn't
know,
he?
he does. And
That's
you just
me off the Christmas card list, isn't it?
You are done now. But it's fascinating. You know who I think could be a little bit of a wild card here is Martin Burrows,
I
who
agree with
qualified
you.
second. And the reason is we've seen him all season long. If there's anybody comfortable driving a car that's a bit sideways and loose, it's Martin. And we've seen him. He gets to the front, and then he overdrives maybe the tires a little bit, and the car gets real loose. And he is able to hang on to it. And as this race unfolds, he may be a little bit more in his comfort zone. The other drivers are, you're just sideways everywhere. You're sideways everywhere. Well, Martin's going, okay. And I think it could be interesting to see. Yeah, it really could. And you look at the difference in times between Cooper and the rest of the field.
Yes.
When I was watching Cooper, particularly in the practice sessions, for instance, coming through turn 1 into the heavy braking area of turn 2, he would come in, just get the curb a little bit in 1, so he wasn't getting a lot of the curb, which there's a big bump and it unsettles the car. And then he was braking earlier and a little lighter, and then rolling speed through 2, eating up all of the exit curb. Other drivers were doing the old late braking thing down into turn 2, and then oftentimes would overslow or over-rotate and not carry the speed through the exit of 2. And I think Cooper's he's driving very smooth and controlled, backing everything up a little bit. And in these very greasy conditions, that's what you have to do. I mean, it's 92 degrees right now, but the real feel, when you add in humidity and the heat index and all that, is 104 degrees right now. High humidity, nowhere for any kind of heat to dissipate to. This is a 30-minute race, and it's going to be a tough one.
Big mention I must also bring up for the AM driver, Dave Musial, who got within just a few tenths of Benjamin Eathus' time. And I think that was a remarkable effort. He was the best of our AM drivers, and he'll be going from P1 for that particular grid, Greg.
Absolutely. And, of course, he's got track experience here, having run in 2016 and 2017 here. So, well, the stage is set, Dave. I think it's time for us to get this one going. For that, let's get down to Shay.
From the events and marketing team with Ferrari, Siobhan Schechner here to give the command to get the engine started, to get the drivers all amped up, and get this 30-minute race started. The first race of the weekend for Ferrari Challenge. So, Siobhan, are you ready?
Ready. Drivers, start your engines.
Well done. Thank you, Siobhan.
I think she did a fine job there.
She did indeed. And we are getting ready to go on this one. As we've talked about, it's a little bit of a lighter field here than we've seen at some venues this year. But at the sharp end of things, incredibly stout in both of the classes. And we've been talking a lot and focusing on Cooper McNeil and the battle he's had with Benjamin Eathus in terms of the points and Cooper's margin. You take a look at what's unfolding in the Trofeo Pirelli AM category in terms of the points. Neil Gahani comes in leading Ziad Gandour by a much smaller margin than Cooper leads Eathus. And keep in mind, everybody was saying when Ziad missed the Indy race and that's where Neil Gahani won 2 races and moved into the points lead. But it was Gahani had missed the opening round of the championship, as you could see. That was in Austin at Circuit of the Americas. So now they're all even on starts, and that championship is in. But look at this lineup of racetracks that these drivers have had experience on this year.
It's been an extraordinary season, from Austin to Sebring to Laguna Seca to Montreal to Indianapolis. Here we are, Homestead, and of course the finals to come at the extraordinary Tuscan circuit of Mugello. So here we are right at the bottom end of Florida, and a part of Florida that I'd not experienced. We're just genuinely not far from the Keys here.
Not at all. I mean, it's about a half-hour drive down to Key Largo, and then you're on your way. And that's why this time of year you're getting all this tropical heat, because you're literally right down and into it here. Here's a look at the track itself. You see the finish line, that first bend to the left, flat out if everything's right, then heavy braking into turn 2, and then that 3, 4, 5 complex. You've got to get that one right because it launches you onto a long infield straight. Then you've got 6, 7. You should be flat through 7, just feeding it power again when everything's right. Another hugely important run up into turn 8, and guess what? Third time monstrously on the brakes.
Yes.
Then out of 8, that big run up onto the back straight, then a little bit tighter bend through 11, then down into 12, and then that little bit of a chicane leading you back onto the front straight. The key that I mentioned there, those brakes, there are 3 areas here where you're huge brakes, and this is the turn in right there. They're using it sort of as a crosshairs. That's into turn 10. It's a tricky spot, and most of the drivers are literally going for those crosshairs because that seems to be the perfect compromise between angle of transition so you don't bang down off of that banking and being able to flow speed. If you stay up higher, it's faster, but it's a really hard transition that bottoms the car out and unloads it. If you're tighter into it, then you just can't flow as much speed through that corner. So they've sort of figured that out, and there you see it, that just ridiculously warm and humid.
You're right there. It's like someone has turned the central heating on for a European like me. I can tell you so. The cars are making their way. It was really interesting to look at that crosshair section, and that's the target, isn't that? That's what they're aiming for. And well, we've got 30 minutes of race action to come from the Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli cars making their way out onto the track right now. Then after Siobhan giving the command for gentlemen, start your engines, which indeed they did. Let's take a look now in a high-speed lap at the circuit.
Well, my name is Didier Tays. I'm the head coach of the Ferrari Challenge North America, and we are in southern Florida at Homestead-Miami Speedway. Very challenging track, very technical. Some fast corners, slow corners. We use part of the banking and a front straight and a back straightaway. A little bit similar to Daytona Speedway. Quite a technical infield. We are here in the front straightaway, driving the Ferrari 488, and we are going into turn 1. Quite very fast turn with a little bit of a dip inside. Turn 2, you need to keep the momentum, and a very, very hard braking for turn 3. Very late apex in turn 3 because you have a turn 4 coming up right at you. You're actually in a dip, very early on the throttle. You go use all the track, a little bit on the curb on the left-hand side. You keep the momentum for the straightaway, and you end up, of course, in turn 6. Turn 6 also is a very important corner, just a double corner, turn 6 and 7. 7 is flat going into turn 8, and that's where actually a good driver, a good setup make a difference. Flat out, go a little bit on the curb on the left-hand side. Very, very, very heavy braking at the end, turn 8. Very tight hairpin, actually the slowest corner of the racetrack, where you need to really keep the momentum to get the car in a good position for the back straightaway, which is the second longest straightaway of the track. A little bit of a curb on the inside. You use all the track at the exit. We are on the banking actually, going into turn 10. Very fast corners, important to enter that turn with some throttle. Heavy braking for turn 12. It's kind of like a chicane, a fast S's. 13, 14, 15 is like a quick complex. Right, left, a little bit on the curb, and actually on the last turn, turn 15, you try not to go on the banking too early because there's a transition between the road course and the banking.
As a matter of fact, when he came up on there, you saw that cone laying out there that had been knocked over.
Yeah.
They put those there to tell people, don't get into this part of the track. The transition is just too abrupt. It will break race cars.
We love the Didier Tays track illustration for us. That one, more than any that I've seen this year, just had an immense feeling of, my goodness, you need to be on it all the time, Greg. These drivers are not going to have a second to relax.
No, it's a very busy track. You're right. It's just a tick over 2 miles long, 15 counted corners, and you've got those straights, but you're upshifting and downshifting. You know, there's no long period where you're just riding along in a top gear. Didier told me that the cars are a little over 150 miles an hour for top end around here, so you're moving. But again, huge wear on brakes, and with this heat, just the way that the track works and how it deals with heat, as good as these Pirelli P0s are, you get fall off. It's all heat related and track surface related, and it really is going to make this one heck of a chess match for these drivers to be able to endure. And a couple of things to note there. That 4-5 complex, you heard him say you touch a little bit of the curb.
Yeah.
You don't want to be on those curbs hard because you're full acceleration there. And if you hit the curb and it bounces you up a little bit, you use wheel spin, the TC kicks in.
Yes.
And suddenly you're not getting the drive out of there. So smooth in these conditions, just being smooth. Brent Holden told me, he said, you almost have to drive it like it's a rain race. You don't go to a rain line, but that level of finesse on everything, because if you try and hustle the car, it slides.
Right.
It's that simple.
And the minute the car is sliding, you're losing speed, aren't you?
And I mean, these cars, I think we talked about, they're immensely powerful and the like, but they're all identical. And if the guy in front of you gets a real clean drive out of the corner and you come out of the corner and you're a little sideways, doesn't matter the amount of power you have relative to him, it's the same.
Yes.
You're going to lose time. So precision is really important at this one. Brake preservation, tire management. This is a tricky place. So, you know, a lot of drivers call it technical, and there's lots of spots where the guardrail or the walls are really close. One of the coaches said it's visually exciting around here. At places, almost feels like a street course.
And this track in particular, now we're racing at, what are we, 13:17 local time? It's
1:17 for all of us here.
It's approaching. Thank you. It's approaching the hottest part of the day.
Absolutely.
So this asphalt is baking, and some of the oil that's contained within it, that almost lends itself to perhaps the slippery nature, because where some people will think, what on earth are you talking about? You know, it's bone dry. The track has got to be the grippiest it could ever be. But as I understand it from what you've told me, the way the asphalt is made up here, of course, there's sand involved as well because of where we are. You know, actually, this track, this particular circuit, one of the vagaries, if you like, of Homestead-Miami is that the track surface is abrasive, but it also feels slippery. And you said just a few moments ago, you know, talking to drivers who say that actually, in many regards, it's like driving a wet race.
Yeah, it is. And what happens is this track was really green. They've had a lot of rain here. And when we say green, it means rain washes off the rubber and the grip and all that. So you get here, the track's just slippery because it doesn't have a lot of rubber down. So, okay, cool. Everybody's running Pirelli P0 rubber here. So the track rubbers up. Now you get that good level of grip. But then when it gets this hot, the oils bake out of that just a little bit. And that changes things up. And here's a look at that grid.
Cooper McNeil from pole position alongside Martin Burrows. Benjamin Hites goes from row 3. Then it's Dave Musial. Then the best of the AM drivers to show ahead of Ziad Gandor and Neil Kahani, who will be going on row 3 from P5 and P6 as we continue our look through the grid. Then Mark Musso, row 4, going from P7. Then it's Brent Holden. And bringing up the rear is John Maygrue, representing Ferrari of Long Island. Another one of our Trofeo Pirelli AM drivers, John Maygrue, then from the back of the grid. So all those drivers are on their formation lap then ahead of the start of this race to come. 30 minutes of race action to come from Ferrari Challenge North America, as we certainly do reach the sharp end of the championship now. Cooper McNeil is the man that's right at the top of that, but he is being chased by Benjamin Hites, who is going from P3. There is Martin Burrows in between the two of them.
Yeah, he's proven to be the wild card in a number of races this year, and he tends to be really good at the start in being able to find a way through and surprise people. One formation lap, one pace lap here, again, all part of it, you know, beat of the heat. Normally on a short track like this, you might even do 2, but it's so warm, every component's going to be plenty warm, and so they're just doing the one lap. And keep in mind, as compelling as that battle is between Cooper and Hites, that battle between Gahani And Gondor is really stout as well. And that's the red car with that white nose is Gondor, who's second in the points. That silver machine is Gahani, who is the points leader. And that's going to be a battle to really watch here as things get going. All right, the field's starting to pair up just a little bit. They said in the driver's briefing there is no start area. So it's up to Cooper MacNeil now to just maintain pace car speed until they see green.
So then this is when the excitement, the anticipation builds then as the cars head towards the start-finish line. And we are about to go racing here. Ferrari Challenge North America then. Cooper MacNeil from P1, Martin Burrows from P2, and Benjamin Hites, look, could get mugged right at the start. No, he carries quite a bit of speed, so he maintains that P3 place. But Cooper MacNeil, he set that up absolutely perfectly.
Yeah, he did. You could see Burrows was kind of looking at him a little bit, and Cooper just stayed to the inside, out-deeped him. Burrows had to tuck back in. Look at this move here. It's Gahani trying to go around the outside of Gondor, trying to squeeze him. Gondor squeezes right back, and Gahani's going to lose a spot to Mark Muzo.
And may even lose out to John McGrew as well.
He did lose to McGrew. He's in fact defending on Holden now, heading down into turn 6. So Gahani trying to get around the guy he's racing in the points, Gondor early, and Gondor having none of it, and it cost Gahani dearly. Yeah, he's almost second to the back of the field.
Cooper MacNeil beginning to stretch his legs a little bit over Martin Burrows. And then it is Benjamin Hites tucked in that P3 place ahead of the rest of the pack. But Cooper MacNeil then doing what he needs to do, building up a couple of car lengths. But now, as you can see, Martin Burrows tries to come back at him. And Martin Burrows eking out a bit of a lead over Benjamin Hites as well now. Benjamin Hites, of course, comes here with very little experience of this Homestead-Miami track. And you can see how Cooper MacNeil, knowing this track reasonably well, is able just, of course, with no challenge from him, to be able to just put that comfort margin between him and anybody else. Mark Muzo there in the liveried number 13 car as they put one lap in the book, and the race is by far and away underway, and Cooper MacNeil with already a second's worth of margin over Martin Burrows.
And Burrows has opened that margin up again over Hites, as you talk about. Here's that moment.
Yes.
And you can see Gahani had got alongside of Gondor in the previous corner and tried to squeeze him a little bit, and Gondor took umbrage at that, and when they exited that turn, he said, I'll squeeze back, and Gahani lost 2 spots. So that's big in terms of this championship, Gahani being the point leader. And look at this, Burrows getting a big run on MacNeil. Not sure what happened there. Wonder if MacNeil had a problem getting through 4 and 5, but that thing just laid down on him coming out of turn 5.
That car looks like it's slowing because here comes Benjamin Hites now. So Cooper MacNeil seemingly with a problem here because already having gone through is Martin Burrows, and now Benjamin Hites has gone through as well.
This is huge.
Well, it is huge because Dave Musial is right on him now also.
And he almost ran into him.
Whatever is going on in that number 63 car of Cooper MacNeil, this is bad news because, of course, what he needs to do, although he's got that comfort margin at the top of the points, he needs to bank points as Benjamin Hites makes a mistake and is out on the grass.
That was a huge off, thankfully, in one of the areas here that has massive runoff. Yeah, that was big.
So much happening now, and I don't know. Do you think it's an intermittent problem with Cooper? Because he seems to be able to just keep a reasonable pace in the car, but not enough to be leading. So there's Benjamin Hites coming back from a huge save then as he was on the grass, and you can see how he's lost out to Martin Burrows in terms of the gap that Martin Burrows has now been able to eke out.
It looks to me like Cooper, the problem is getting off of a slow corner. And, once he gets up to speed, it looks like it's okay, but it's just accelerating to that pace. And this is one of those spots trying to get out of turn 4 and 5, and he just can't get that thing up on the pipe quick enough. By the end of it, he's not bad, but by then, they're already past him.
Yeah, so Mark Musso, the next to go past the ailing WeatherTech machine, it would appear then. So this is drama not like we imagined at the beginning of this race. Now coming through is John McGrew.
It's getting worse. Yeah, he's really struggling with some issue at this stage. And again, keep in mind, we've talked about just the heat here, and you never know if something heat-related now has gone in and caused some sort of an issue. And I mean, this is gut-wrenching for him because he was so fast. He was second quicker than the field in qualifying. And we were talking about how you know, he's got a sizable point margin, but there are 88 points left, including this one. Well, 87 now that qualifying's been done. But it's 20 to win. You have one issue, and you finish 10 points adrift. Suddenly that championship is one heck of a lot closer.
Well, as we said earlier, I think it was perhaps in the qualifying program, what Benjamin Hites needs is for Cooper McNeil to fall over for some reason. And, well, we certainly didn't expect it to come in this particular race. And what I find surprising here is he's continuing to go down. He has brought the car in, hasn't he?
Well, and I think what he's thinking at this point is, and this is the upside of having a slightly lighter entry,
of course,
than you might want, is if he can just finish, you know, the minimum number of laps, he'll at least get, say, top 5 points somewhere in there, which would be, you know, 8 points thereabouts to Hites 20. So it's stemming the flow a little bit. Certainly not ideal, but you know, the crew's probably saying, you know, unless what's happening, it can cause the car to break and stop, and then you don't get classified with a finish. You get no points. It's just stay out there and just try and finish this.
You said at the beginning of this race, Martin Burrows could be impressive in this. I think he's impressed us more than we expected in an earlier part of the race than we expected. He leads by very nearly 2 seconds over Benjamin Hites, appreciating that Martin Burrows was advantaged by the fact that Benjamin Hites decided to do some lawn mowing before exiting that turn. But nonetheless, I mean, Benjamin Hites, what he needs to do is really try and get on terms with Martin Burrows, because that would, that would just ensure that he could bank maximum points out of this race. And actually, Benjamin Hites, he's now beginning to claw that gap back a bit, isn't he?
Well, if he's serious about this championship, he's got to get around Burrows, and here's why. You win, it's 20 points. You finish second, it's 15.
Big
he
difference.
Needs those 5 points if he's going to, with Cooper's issue, those 5 points are absolutely huge.
Well, I said Hites now, it's almost like he was listening to you, because he has sharpened up his accelerator foot, and he is getting closer to Martin Burrows now. So last time around, the last completed that, the gap between them was 1.1 seconds. You can tell from just looking at the cars now, it's nothing like that. Benjamin Hites is getting closer, but I think Martin Burrows is now beginning to respond. Fastest lap of the race did come earlier on from Martin Burrows, a 1:27.944, and the 63 car is in. That is the car of Cooper McNeil. So obviously his valiant efforts at trying to keep the car going has failed. He's had to bring the car into the pit lane. It's not to say he's not going to resume.
Right.
But now I think it's fair to say that, Benjamin is trying everything he can to get closer to Martin Burrows, but I think Martin is responding as well. He can see the Benjamin Hites car, the car from the collection, in his rearview mirror, and he is trying to respond. But there you can see in certain technical parts of the track, I think Hites seems to be a little bit quicker, Greg.
Yeah, but the one area I'm watching for Burrows where he looks really strong is acceleration out of a slow corner.
Okay.
He came out of 8 and immediately gapped Hites. He just came out of 14, immediately gapped Hites just a little bit, and which means that Hites is not going to have that easy, drive by him pass kind of thing into one of the big braking zones. He's going to need to get creative somewhere. Clearly, in the twisty bits here, Hites, that car is looking really stout right now.
It's all very well the car looking really stout. He's got to find a way by too, hasn't he?
Yes, he does. And speaking of getting by, there you see the 36 of Gahani has been able to pick up a spot and has gone around John McGrew. He still, though, has Mark Muzzo in between himself and Gondor, who sits 4th overall, but 2nd in the Copachel Am category. And so Gahani, who was one of the absolute stars of the Indy weekend, he needs to repeat that kind of performance here. He got aggressive at the start. I like that. Yeah. Try and make a move, see if you can get Gondor behind you and deflate him just a little bit. Gondor was up to it, and Gahani was the one who suffered just a little bit, so he's just got to get that head down and start going after it here.
So Brent Holden then putting the chase on to John McGrew, Ferrari of Newport Beach chasing Ferrari of Long Island, and Chase, my goodness me, almost welded together there as they make the exit of that turn. And taking a look at the inside, of course, we'll duck back in behind John McGrew's car because of this turn in now, which you take at an extraordinary speed before braking for this left-hander, which both do in parallel. But certainly, Brent Holden, for my money, is really pressuring John McGrew now. And John McGrew, now, I don't think that was necessarily necessarily a mistake, but just the grip wasn't there for him.
Yep, went to throttle. The back end just came out just a little bit. And, you know, we're now 6 laps in at about 20 minutes left in this race. And they were talking about in this window, you get, just because of the heat, you get another little drop off in the grip level that you have. And that's what McGrew might be dealing with here. If he's had to pedal really hard and push those tires a bit to stay first ahead of Gahani and now Holden, you can see right now McGrew's struggling to get that car to turn.
Yes. And as you rightly say, we're only a third into the race. The tyre deck across the rest of the race is going to really change the way that these cars handle potentially over the duration of this 30-minute race. So Benjamin Ites right on the back of Martin Burrows now then. It's as close as he's got. 3/10 is the margin between the two of them now. So Martin Burrows metaphorically having to stick his elbows out a little bit to prevent Benjamin Ites. But of course, Martin can be a little bit smoother, and Benjamin is the one that's having to be really, really aggressive here. Therefore, he's taking quite a lot out of his car, taking quite a lot out of the tyres, out of the brakes, potentially out of the suspension as well, as he continues his quest to go from P2 to P1. It's Martin Burrows that's leading the race currently.
Yep, but you see again right there, Burrows gets that little 2-3 car length sort of lunge off of that tight corner, and Ites is able to gobble it up once he gets into some of these turns. But Burrows, that car is planting really well. Here's this key turn 4. You don't want to get up on that curve too aggressively. And this one, you just want to nick a little bit. You see how Ites really got onto that curb quite a bit?
More so than Burrows, definitely. Yep. Yes, you're right.
And that cost him just that little bit of drive. And then Dave Musial on his way right now, sitting in a 3rd overall position. That would be a great finish if he can maintain it here. This is that turn 7 that is a flat out sort of the continuation of turn 6, and the radius opens up. And as that race as we get deeper into the race, that turns more difficult to take flat and just feed power through. And that can affect you, obviously, in the opportunity down into turn 8 and a pass.
You're absolutely right. I've just been watching that. Burrows off the back of turns is able to pull away a little bit, isn't he?
Just a bit. Yep, that car's planting the power down extremely well. So they've got a nice amount of mechanical grip dialed into that car. Keep in mind those slow corners where you're launching like that, you're not getting much aero effect. That wing's not doing much. The aero in the car is not doing much. You need speed for the aero to work, so that's mechanical grip, and they have dialed up some mechanical grip in that Ferrari of Fort Lauderdale entry.
Well, Ites has taken another couple of tenths out of him. When they crossed the timing line, it had gone from 4.02 down to 2.26 now, the tenths between the two of them. And when it comes to setting a car up, the engineers would look at this along with the driver as well. And any setup is always a compromise, as Ites now continues to pile the pressure on Martin Burrows. And Ites is doing his level best here. Let's hear a bit from Shea.
I just checked in with his team, and they said that Benjamin did several race simulations over the course of the testing and open practice. He knows how the tires fall off. He knows when to make his move. So he's pushing, but he's not pushing that hard because he realizes that there's still 18 minutes to go, and he knows exactly what his car is going to feel like in 18 minutes' time.
Thanks, Shea. Well, he certainly knows how the grass feels, Greg. That's the second excursion we've seen onto the grass for Benjamin Ites in his continuing push to get on to Martin Burrows.
Yeah, and that's that exit of turn 7 that we were talking about. That as generally that's just flat. You're just feeding power through that whole turn. But as the grip starts to go away, you can't do that. You've got to mitigate that just a little bit. And he just went for it once again, ran him wide, and look at the margin now that Burrows as a result. And that's that momentum kill that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
These are identical cars, huge power, but if you lose the relative momentum, you're just not going to be quick. Noticing that last sequence, though, Burrows is really struggling to get the car turned into 13 and rotated to 14. And that's an opportunity here for Ites. Burrows, once he gets to throttle, it's still good.
Yeah. That turn,
wiggle that time by Burrows. He's feeling it.
13-14. He could be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Here comes Ites. Look. Well, there's not even a 100th between the two of them, is there? There's no passing opportunity there, is there? But what Martin Burrows is doing, and I'm He's not yielding to the pressure, is he? He's not making mistakes, Greg, which so often drivers do when they've got this level of attack going on behind them. And of course, what Benjamin Hites wants more than anything else is for Martin Barros to make a mistake, and that's all he would need. Like a Viper, then he would go through and be able to pick up that pace. But currently, Martin Barros doing a very good job in terms of sticking his elbows out, and he's going to have to do that here as Benjamin Hites takes a look, first of all, at the inside, then at the outside, and it's here where Benjamin Hites has made it work, and he goes through to pick up the lead of this race. He actually saw that opportunity. He was close enough to be able to do something about it, and I think now that he has got past Martin Barros, we're going to see a difference in pace.
I think so too. Burrows, once he went down the inside, I think if Burrows had opened up the wheel, stayed a little closer, and then went for the cutback move, the way he's getting power down, it would have worked. But here, you can see Hites sold him the dummy just a little bit. Burrows didn't bite too much on that, but right here, he left that opening just a little wider than maybe he needed to. And if he could have got turned in just a little bit, with the plant he's got coming off the slow corners, he may have been able to do something down that back straight. But right now, Hites is just flowing speed right now. And look at Burrows. Oh, and then he overshoots just that little bit.
And that really reinforced what you were saying, that you can so overshoot on this track. You can just take too much, and that really compromises it.
Right, and one of the things that all of the drivers and the coaches that I've been talking to have said, you have to stay ahead of the grip falling off, and it's going to fall off all race. And they said, if you feel the car skate a little bit, don't think, well, that was just me pushing too hard. No, make your adjustment on the traction controller, the bars right now, to stay ahead of it, and know that even though the car is getting lighter, in theory it should be more responsive. The grip is going away at a quicker rate than the responsiveness because of the fuel. And you've got to be on top of it in terms of your inputs into the car. And that's what we're seeing here. And boy, Holden really working over McGrew. But every time Holden puts the car someplace to do something, McGrew somehow senses, that's where I need to put this car to stop it.
And John McGrew has got every right to defend his track position. And Brent Holden now trying to go around the outside here. John McGrew does squeeze him, and Brent Holden ends up on the grass. And well, that's ruined any overtake opportunity on this lap. He's got to work so hard again, once again, to get back on terms with John McGrew. And here we can see our race leader then, Benjamin Hites. Now, the cones to the right-hand side of your picture there, because the transition from the road course and onto the oval again, you know, it's very important, those cones there, for a specific reason.
Well, you can see they took that last one off. As we watch Dave Musial, who's having an extraordinary run here, leading in the Trofeo Pirelli AM category right now, as he's opened that margin up. There it is, back to Ziad Gandour. But they took the last cone out of the way, and of course, immediately now, everybody is running that line. But you can see when you watch the exit of 14 how abrupt those are. Now, watch this move here as Holden goes to the outside, and he's got that spot. He's right there. There's no way McGrew doesn't know he's there.
Sure.
And there are two different schools of thought on this. There are some who say, you put the car on the outside, that's a risk, that's on you. I happen to think you get the car, if you're good enough to get the car alongside to the point where you've got a nose ahead, you've earned that piece of racetrack. Be interesting to see what the stewards think of that moment.
My view is that you're right, racing room should be given. I wonder whether John McGrew even had the grip to be able to give him racing room if he wanted to.
Well, there is that. I mean, if he
I might be being very kind to him.
Yeah, but that might be accurate. He may have turned in at commitment, and at that point, you know, if he'd lifted, he spins, kind of a deal. So, yeah, it's a tricky scenario. But I know Brent will say, well, I got to the outside and I didn't touch him,
And he was right alongside,
so,
wasn't he?
Yeah,
He was
so
all the way alongside.
As usual, we'll probably get a couple of different opinions on that.
This is Mark Muso, who's currently running P3 in class, P5 in the race overall for Ferrari of Ontario. Let's hear from Shay once again.
Tell me a little bit about Homestead-Miami Speedway. What do you make of this track?
You want the truth? No, it's listen, it's got a great history track, but for a driver, it's very difficult, and it's not so much the technical side of it. It's coming to grips with, literally coming to grips with the car. You know, we've had a hell of a weekend all week trying to set up to try and get traction and get the proper setup of the car. This track, it's between the heat and the actual texture, it's very abrasive, so it wears the tires out quick. So, you know, trying to put that fast lap in before everything starts to deteriorate. So it's become a really challenging track in that respect.
How has 2019 on a whole been for you in Ferrari Challenge?
You know, it's actually seen some great improvements. I've been doing this for about 8 years now, so from where we started to where we are. As a driver, we experienced some new tracks, some more historical tracks that were a pleasure to drive. Some that, you know, in those 8 years I still haven't driven, so the fact that they made it onto the course was really good. But more so, I found a lot of the improvements being with respect to the media and the timing and the following. Really good to help the family that's not here and that's watching abroad, and you know, the fact that they can stream a race and see it from wherever they're at has been really good. So I get a lot more positive feedback. People are actually following it live during the race. So with respect to that, it's been really good. The changes so far have been positive.
You have a lot of options out there. Why race Ferrari Challenge?
Well, it's like any young kid. Driving and racing a Ferrari is a dream, right? But at the end of the day, you know, for me, like, I've contemplated doing other series, but when you sort of look at it, you know, dollar for dollar, you get the most track time. Like, dollar per lap, I don't think you can beat Ferrari Challenge because, you know, you're not a support race, you are the show. So they're giving you the max amount of time on the track. The venues they pick are conducive to bring your family. You know, it's not box lunches. You're eating gourmet stuff for your guests. So it's up to another tier. You know, when you got to compare series and budget-wise, it's for running the car. It's not different than some of those other series that you'd consider going to, but yet the experience is that much better.
Mark, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
So Mark Musso then explaining why Ferrari Challenge is for him. Now, yes, Dave Musial.
He is looking at Gondor for second, or for Burrows for second overall here.
So there's Martin Burrows in the number 46 car, being chased by Dave Musial. Now, the reason we're making much of this is Dave Musial is in the AM class, and he is chasing down Martin Burrows, who's in the Trofeo Pirelli class. Of course, leading the way is Benjamin Hites, who's got something like a second gap. But look at this between Martin Burrows and Dave Musial. It's down to just 3/10, and here comes Gandor, who's going to try and buy into this battle as well. So all of a sudden, Greg, this is going to be a three-way fight, isn't it?
This is great with an AM guy, a couple of AM guys mixing it up with Burrows. And Burrows trying to stay in front of Hites. He may have just taken a little bit more out of those tires.
Yes.
And so now he's struggling just a little bit. Musial had laid back a little bit. Gondor, you know, after he had sort of fended off Gahani, was able to just be smooth and consistent for a little bit. And they just look like they have a little bit more car right now. And Burrows has got his work cut out for him. And this is still, though, an impressive run here by a couple of AM guys.
I agree with you. And Burrows really is going to have to stick his elbows out.
Way down.
Well, if he can make... Oh, and look at the back end of Burrows' car, which was then with Gandor, made even more sideways. So now Martin Burrows is going to have to try and come back. There's no doubt about it. You've called that exactly correctly. He was really struggling with grip, wasn't he? But once the back end of the car had gone, then unfortunately it was just tagged, wasn't it? And he was going around.
Well, and he squared up, and obviously Gondor thought, okay, he's going to square up and go. I'm just going to roll throttle and just use my normal line. And then the back of Burrows' car stepped out suddenly, and I think that just caught Gondor completely by surprise. That certainly wasn't any kind of an intentional tap. No. But it did obviously cost Burrows in terms of sending him around that spin. But you can see that car everywhere is just super loose. Now watch this move once again. Just a late move, showed the nose, then dove for it. And here's where Burrows saying, okay, I'm going to square up underneath, goes to throttle, and there's the rotation. And Gondor had already committed to picking the throttle up too.
To be fair to Gandor, he'd kind of got nowhere to go at that point, had he? And as you say, certainly nothing malicious in that at all. But, well, what had promised so much for the driver of the number 46 car, Martin Burrows, it'll be a bit of disappointment. A lot of that is down to the fact that he drove really, really hard in the early stages of the race and took so much out. And it actually adds credence to what you were saying earlier about this second drop-off in terms of grip.
Yeah, everybody was talking about it, and they said you've got to be ready for it. You got to get ahead of it with the adjustments in the car, and then you've got to drive accordingly and just understand it's not going to be there. And it's what we talked about. The slipperier it gets, the smoother your inputs have to be, or you're going to be sideways and losing speed. And but why, you know, I've been watching with removing that last cone. There was one right at the end of that white stripe where those cones are.
Yes.
Now, of course, they're okay. We're going to use that, and the transition there is so aggressive, and you can see the look at that. It's just a huge sudden boom.
It's a yump
when they get,
almost, isn't it?
It is.
As we would
It
say
is.
in rally terms.
Yeah. Speaking of rally terms, Zehog is doing a nice job.
Yeah.
We teased Gondor about that, but he picked up. Look at this move! Oh boy!
Oh, that was so close. Yeah.
Yeah, he realized he had overcommitted there. Yeah, well, rallying, we were talking about it,
Yes,
but
we were.
he's done a lot of rallying in the Middle East, and he picked up the nickname there, Zehog. They used to call him that, so that's we've been giving him that. But you don't want to be rallying here on a road course like that, and just that little moment, you can see how much it cost him to Musial.
Yes, yes. It cost Musial a lot though, if there'd have been connection between the two of them.
boy,
And I
yeah,
thought
that
was
that
coming.
had potential to be real ugly. You're right.
Whilst all this is going on, may I just mention, Benjamin Ites has opened up over Dave Musial 14.1 gap. I mean, that's extraordinary in these conditions when the track is as you can see the back end of the Dave Musial car letting go just a little bit then. So I think Benjamin Ites doing a very, very good job. Now he's got his nose in front. He's just got his head down and going for it.
Look at this moment. Yep, he just.
Actually, the gap was a bit bigger than I thought from that particular camera angle.
Yeah, he just carried speed. Thought, well, I'm going to surprise him. I think down into turn 2, and then realized, oh, if I surprise him, it's going to be real bad.
Yes, I think you're right.
And just did whatever he could to try and not get into him. And Musial just fortunate that you know, had he turned in a little bit later, it could have been a different story. So there you see that little bit of a bump when you get that apex curve in 1. And as the grip continues to drop off, that bump becomes so much more of an adverse effect on you.
Ziad has come back, though,
He
hasn't
has. Yeah, he's got pace right now. There's no question about that. Now, get on the throttle.
Can he make a move at the end of this?
It's all about the toe here because he got a decent run. Looked in, now out. Now, get the drive through here. He does seem to have a little bit more stick than Musial, so if he can flat foot through 7 right here, just keep it pinned. Get up on the tail. Boy, Musial got through there pretty well, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, Gondor's too far back at this stage. But now he got Musial to commit way early into this corner, and he can square underneath, there it is. That was pretty.
Well, to be fair, he set that up perfectly, didn't he, Greg?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's funny, a lot of times when you talk to people who aren't real knowledgeable on racing, now Musial's going to fight back around the outside. Oh, Gondor way behind that curb. That could be a track limit violation, and he wisely dips the brake and lets Musial through. I mean, Musial just fought back. That was brilliant.
Wow. And great to see. And
Oh, big wiggle there, though,
Yes.
for Musial.
yeah, the back end stepped out, didn't it? Of course, the transition change helped that.
Yes.
Makes the back end of the car a bit loose. But, well,
Watch the commitment here now, because there's that bump. Gondor used a lot more of that curb. That unsettles the car a little bit. This time he got it reined in time.
both of them, you can see the back ends of their cars really are struggling now. Mind you, we've only got 2.5 minutes of this race left. Where's the race gone,
It's
Greg?
flown by. This has just been such a fascinating study. And again, now this is where Gondor gets a pretty decent run. Musial has to defend here. Now we'll see if it depends on the run here out of 7. If Musial gets another good run, don't get so far over to defend. Yeah, but this time, well, and Gondor's that's rally move number 3.
He does a good job of saving the car.
He does. He's pushing so hard. But see, that's what I was talking about. You get into that turn 7, the grip continues to fall off, and he's so close behind that little bit of aero effect on the nose is also dissipated.
Yes.
And he just pushed wide. Well, I'll tell you that Musial fighting to get back around him into turn 11, that was a key moment here.
This, in the meantime, is our race leader, our overall race leader. Benjamin Hites doing a very, very smooth and consistent job. He's untroubled by anyone. He can drive well within the grip that the car is able to afford him because he's untroubled by anybody. There's no traffic, and he can just focus on nailing every apex and doing it all. I mean, he's built a 20.1 second gap over Dave Musial, who both you and I have been terribly impressed with in this race. He's done a great job, and he's doing a great job in continually defending from Ziad Gandor. Let's hear from Shay now.
Guys, I checked in with the team, and they said they asked Benjamin to slow down. They wanted it to be one fewer lap, and he just refused. He is having way too much fun out there, stretching the gap. At one point, he put 3 seconds over the competition on one lap, and they said, hey, buddy, calm down. You're fine. You're leading by a bunch. And he said, not enough.
He's a real racer, isn't he?
He is. And there's something to be said when you're in the zone and you slow down. That's when you can start making little mistakes, little errors.
Yes.
And he may have said, no, I'm in a rhythm. It's working for me. I understand what's going on. I'm ahead of the curve in terms of the loss of grip. Let me drive it. And I mean, you can't flaw him for that with the performance he's putting in here.
Dave Musial probably won't thank him for that.
No, not at all.
1 lap shorter would have been ideal for him. So Benjamin Ites, and there the transition.
Oh, and he slowed it down. Did you see that?
Yeah.
He backed it off.
He really did.
Oh, and they're still giving him the white. Nope, they are calling it the finish now. The checker has come out. And I think it's because he backed off. The starter had the white in his hand.
Yes.
And boy, for Musial, that may have been the godsend right there, because the checker is out because Gandor had run Musial down one more time.
Well, I tell you what, by looking at the starter's gantry, it was definitely the white flag rather than the checkered flag. And sorry, as far as I'm concerned, Ziad doesn't think this is over.
Well, I think it's smart for him to just continue to push and just say, look, I saw white. I didn't see a checker. I'm going to race this last lap just in case.
Yeah.
And I see that's nothing wrong with it. Ooh, thought about it right there.
You can see how trying to control the car with the ever-diminishing grip.
Up to the inside.
This is not, well, it is over, but it isn't over, if you see what I'm saying. And poor old Dave Musial is having to do it all over again, isn't he, in terms of his defending.
Yep.
Here comes Gandor, who'll try and get underneath Dave Musial now, as he did previously.
Oh, and Musial had that second wiggle, and that is what hurt him here. Gandor this time, going to be interesting to see if he can get down to the inside. Meanwhile, Hites has continued this lap as well, thinking, well, it was so close. So now we do get an official checker. So, yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting.
A lot of conversations if the P2
changes up. I agree.
Because there is Dave Musial then, who does cross the line now, and I have to say he thoroughly deserves that P2. He really does overall. It's the win, of course, in AMS, but that was in the final few laps. The battle between himself and Ziad Gandor was extraordinary, and Benjamin Ites, who Shay has told us was having just so much fun out there, wanted the race extended by a few laps and was doing everything he could to make that happen.
Well, and Musial, the move of the race for him, in my opinion, was after Gandor got him coming out of turn 8, and he just went around the outside. Gandor had to turn in early, got inside of that curb, and had to back off just a little bit. And Musial being willing to park it around the outside through 10 and 11 to hold on to that spot. That was a racer's move, and it was impressive indeed. And I think this confusion, it all comes down to, based on his pace, that was going to be a white flag, and then that last sequence of corners, you could see Ites just really backed off, and time elapsed before he got to the line. And according to the software, it was like, well, then that's a checker. But I think you're right. It was a good idea. Whatever happens, it was a good idea to race it out to the end. And as you said, no big changes of position right at the end. And for Gandor, we talked about Ites. With the problems for McNeil, Hites has now made up a big chunk of points, but Gandor has made up a few points on Gahani as well, and that's big for that championship.
So whichever way you look at it, that 30-minute race absolutely flew by, Greg.
Yes.
And there was plenty for us to talk about throughout that race. And Lots going on, wherever you look throughout the pack of car. So let's take a look at the official results then, and here they come on screen for you. Taking the win, Benjamin Hites ahead of Dave Musial and Ziad Gandor, both AM drivers. Then it was Mark Musso, Neil Kahani, Martin Burrows, Brent Holden, John McGrew, and Cooper McNeil then classified there, as you can see, P9 overall, and Kamani did not start, nor did Weiland, Rubo or Zeckelman. So that's the way it looked at the end of, well, what was quite an extraordinary Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli race here at Homestead-Miami.
Absolutely, and the margin coming in had been about 28 points from Hites to McNeil, and you take a look at it now, that margin has dropped down noticeably, and Hites has taken a big chunk back, and this is making this championship ever more intriguing, that's for sure.
Yes. And of course, another race to come for these guys tomorrow, another qualifying session as well. But let's celebrate the fact that we've seen in Trofeo Pirelli, P1 for Benjamin Hites, P2 for Mark Musso, P3 for Martin Burrows, and in the AM classification, it'll be Dave Musial, Ziad Gandor, and Neil Gahani, who will take P3.
So. Burrows put on one heck of a fight, but had just used it up a little bit too much early. And when the grip goes away, and you're a slinger like Martin is, it makes it difficult. It really does, to be able to maintain pace, because Martin likes to sort of pick the car up by the scruff a little bit.
Yeah.
And when it's a complete lack of grip, one lap on decent tires, you bet. But when it's this hot and the grip gets away like that, it puts that kind of a driver into a tough position. So here are the current points, and that's the margin. I mean, it's you're talking 13 points here for the Trofeo Pirelli AM category, and it was significantly more than that coming in, separating those two. So, I mean, it was a big change there for sure. And Musial, with that drive, he's put himself right back into this points championship. That was pretty special stuff. And then here is the story in the pro category, as that margin that Cooper had now, you can see it's down to under 20 points at this stage, 19 points, and it was a fair bit bigger than that. Coming in, it was 29. Now it's down to 19, so that changes the dynamic a bit here.
Yeah, and you know, that's one of the fascinations, isn't it, about the Ferrari Challenge? Just when you think you know which way it's going to go, there's a curveball thrown into the mix, which changes everything, Greg.
It does, and it's going to be interesting. Again, we've talked about this many times, Dave. One of the great things about these doubleheader weekends is we get to do this again tomorrow, and I'm sure Cooper and that Scuderia Corsa team, Ferrari Westlake team, is going to get that sorted out. And what's his response going to be here to what Hites was able to do today in terms of the points? And we've also got this great points battle in the AM category
very much so.
that Musial is now a part of. And it's not just the Gandor Gahani story anymore. It's adding in Musial, and that's going to make it fascinating.
Yeah. So there, a great look then at the track and the paddock right in the center of it, and there will be many discussions going on in the paddock, that's for sure. But one thing I feel pretty convinced about is that those drivers that completed that race will have, they'll have really, really enjoyed it. Although they'll be utterly exhausted, I should think, at the end of 30 minutes in this heat and humidity.
No question. I mean, those cars, you know, they're pretty sealed up to be aerodynamically efficient, and and we talked about it. This is a busy racetrack, and even though we didn't have a ton of traffic for this race, you could see the battling that was going on, and all the transitions that you're making, the turns. You're always doing something on this little slightly more than 2 mile, 15 turn track. And in this heat, that just takes it out of you. And I mean, the mental loads. Remember, you know, the bandwidth you've got to be dealing with here, with everything that's going on with the car, reading it, staying ahead of it, and then trying to execute moves and race as well. That mental toll, and especially with the heat, everything gets exaggerated. So kudos to these guys. I mean, they put on one heck of a show. And for Hites up front, got that big lead and just found himself in a zone. And I like the fact that he told the team, "I'm okay. I'm on top of this. I've got a hold on it. I just want to drive this race," and he did to perfection. So And at the start, Cooper doing what he wanted to do, but Burrows was able to make a move. And you can see Musso there showing the nose just a little bit. And Hitez almost got swallowed up by Musial. And there was Gondor taking the first look, but it was Gahani that got roughed up with he and Gondor. But look at this attack here. That is Musial. He looked, and then he went deep down into turn 8, got the pass done, and that's where the back end of Burrows started to come around. Gondor could not avoid him, just tinked him and finished him around. And that's kind of how it ended up. And at that point, then, last few laps, just a great battle between Musial and Gondor that ended up in Musial's favor.
Yes, and it was a battle that raged and raged and raged, wasn't it? But
raged.
Okay. Credit to both Musial and Gondor.
Yes.
You know, they both were respectful, or as respectful as the grip would allow, I think it's fair to say.
Well, and Gondor had the pace.
Yeah.
Because every time he'd have a little off-road experience, he'd lose ground, run him back down again.
Sure.
But Musial didn't crack, and
No,
that was really the story here. He continued to hit his marks, defended when he needed to, and that outside move in 11 when he had to do something aggressive and sort of off the chart just a little bit, he did it.
It was really interesting, wasn't it, what Shea said, that the team said for Benjamin Hitez, and Benjamin in probably a style not quite the same as Kimi Räikkönen, saying, leave me alone, I know what I'm doing. Okay, let's hear from Shea now.
Benjamin Hitez, another race win, your 5th of the year. Congratulations, and how sweet is it to do it on home ground here in Miami for the collection?
It's very nice to win in home ground, so I'm very happy. The championship lead is closer, and that's the plan, get the championship. Cooper was really fast, and tomorrow I hope to get a better position in the qualifying and fight for the race.
Congratulations on today.
Thank you very much.
Well, he looks pretty happy, doesn't he? And he has done what he needed to do, capitalized on the fact that Cooper McNeil, the car went away from him for whatever reason, and Benjamin Hitez was just there to soak up the maximum points haul from taking the win in that race. Dave Musial, Ziad Gandil, the best of the AM drivers, P1 and P2. Mark Musso, P2, of course, in terms of Trofeo Pirelli drivers, ahead of Martin Burrows, who took P3. Neil Gahani, the P3 in terms of AM classification, and a very good race ensued. Once again, we go back trackside with Shea.
Congratulations, Dave Musial. Perfect day for you. Pole position and a win, and it puts you square in the championship battle. So how hard were you pushing out there?
I was pushing so hard that every turn, all I could say to myself is, please don't go off the track. Please don't go off the track. It was crazy. And Gondor was on me the whole time. He was a gentleman out there racing. We were side by side. We're battling. That's what it's all about.
How good does it feel to get that first win?
It feels great. You know, it's my first win in this new class that I'm in. And first win, pole position, second overall. I know, it's a great day. It's a great day.
You've earned your champagne today. Congratulations, Dave.
Thank you very much.
Not being funny, Dave Musial looks as cool as a cucumber. Now, I know air conditioning is a specialist subject, but he looks really, really cool, doesn't he? And
yes,
what was
he
nice
does.
was the fact that he credited the fact that him and Ziad, although they were fighting very, very hard, it's a fair and gentlemanly fight between the two of them. And the camaraderie and respect between the drivers, by and large, Greg, is one of the things that makes the Ferrari Challenge so appealing.
Well, there is a lot of respect, and obviously you get out there, you race hard, but you know, this is very much a club atmosphere.
Yes.
And you know, we're all members of this club. Everybody loves Ferraris. They love racing Ferraris. That's what you share. Yeah, you're going to get out there and you're going to race hard. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be overly aggressive and put anybody at risk. So that was a great execution that we saw today from everybody in these conditions.
So there we have it then. Trofeo Pirelli race done and dusted. From Greg and myself, bye-bye for now.